Jan is a seasoned certified master somatic coach and body worker, specializing in helping individuals overcome headaches, migraines, stress, tension, pain, and trauma to transform their lives. She is known for her pioneering cranial touch therapy for acute migraine relief, which she teaches clients to self apply as part of the somatic headache. Okay, so Jan, welcome to the show. And for those listeners who may not be familiar with your work, could you share a bit of your background and how you became a specialist in headache and migraine relief?
Yes. Hello, Mildred. Hello, all. Thanks for having me. I've been working with headaches and migraines for over 50 years, probably actually since I was a kid, because my mom had migraines. And I used to work on her neck and shoulders and ease out, maybe not the migraine itself, but what led up to it. So that was as a kid. And then I heard of a claim when I was about 21, 22 years old. And that was that if you put your hands on someone's head, you could stop their migraine or their headache. So I thought that was interesting, being that my mom had suffered so much from them. And I started experimenting with it. And I seemed to become a headache magnet. So wherever I was, somebody would say out loud, not knowing what I did, not even knowing me, somebody would exclaim in front of me that they had a migraine or that they had such a bad headache and they were either going to have to go lie down, leave the party, leave work. So I was always curious to see if I could help them. And so I'd pipe up and say, well, let's see if I can help you. I'm just going to put my hands on your head. And if we could just go to the corner of, the store, the room, wherever it was. And sure enough, each time, and I was really curious if it would work each time, and not really knowing, I could stop their headache or migraine in about 5 minutes. And their, they might have looked pale and gray, green from being nauseated from the migraine, not feeling well, being overcome and overwhelmed by it. The whole color in their face would change. They would look more relaxed, and their pain would be gone. So, and it was like a reset. They were ready to go back to doing whatever they were going to do before they were hit by the pain. So I got really curious about that and did it basically for fun for about 21 years, and then became a certified massage therapist so that I could do it, open a practice. And when I started doing that around the same time, or maybe a little bit before, I started getting really bad migraines. And I started reading a lot of material about migraines and headaches and mind-body connection. And I started doing a lot of training after massage therapy school, because when I got my first clients who had migraines, their emotional life would come up as their pain released. So there's some kind of emotional history, an emotional release. So I got very curious about that. And that was at the beginning of when somatics started coming onto the scene in the early 90s, and did a lot of training there and opened up my practice as both a massage therapist and then a headache specialist. And then I started collecting data and refined my questionnaires through some biomedical statistics grad students and some consultations, and started collecting data, and then started teaching classes, and then collected that data, and which was made into a study by some nurse practitioner candidates, and that study was published in 2001. And it showed that 78 migraine patients who completed a very short program, like 4 or 5 or 6 week program through their HMO, were able to reduce their migraines. And most of them, the median amount of time they had had them was for 19 years. They were able to
Wow.
reduce that, their migraine occurrences by 41% and their relief medications by 52%. And that was just
Wow.
a class. So that was also based on creating this program that had helped me, based on learning about what is done with medications and migraine and how to replicate that with mind-body practices and doing it in my own life. So basically changing of lifestyle and patterns and becoming your own headache detective. And that's the program that I created, and that's what was studied.
Oh, that it's amazing because even if somebody, there's a lot of medications, but everybody can't take them, and there's side effects. And so, like with your method, it kind of fits in with options, gives people options. So,
Exactly.
and you've written a book as well, right?
Yes, I wrote the Headache Healer's Handbook, and subtitle is a holistic hands-on somatic self-care program for relief and prevention. So it teaches my whole program in the book, as well as the hands-on therapy to stop your own migraine and hands-on therapies to prevent migraine as well. So, I really like to work with the whole person. So it's not just like a tip here and a technique there. I really like to empower people to really engage in self-care and engage in learning about what are their own triggers and what helps them, what doesn't help them. And for most people who I see, they've been working on their headaches and migraines for many years and trying to find
Yeah,
solutions and taking a variety of medications, which a lot of them do have side effects, or it's a matter of finding the right one, or maybe it works at first and then it doesn't after a while, or becomes, has a side effect. So everybody's chemistry is different. Everybody's different. So different things react. And, everybody reacts differently to medication. So a lot of times it's a matter of trial and error to find the right ones or right combination. But then sometimes those yield, you take one medication and then you have to take another one to address some of the side effects. So it can become, a lot of people want to do a more natural, holistic method. And also not everybody can take medications.
right.
And people become frustrated in trying to do that. So, but what I was starting to say was that a lot of times for most people who've tried so many things, it's usually not one thing. And so by looking at the whole person, not just your foods, not just the tension in your body, not just your stress, it's looking at everything and then counteracting it with practices that ease whatever the problem is.
Right. Even if you're on medication, why not do as much as you can to prevent things? So what we want to talk about today, because the holidays, yeah, it sounds great. Oh, yeah, I'm going to travel and then I'll get there, and then you're going to be moving around and meeting family that who knows, and then so we wanted you to talk about some tips to help in the whole process of getting ready, being there, moving around, and being able to enjoy yourself and prevent headaches as much as possible.
Yes, holidays can be great and holidays can be fraught, right? With all
Right.
sorts of things, that we're not used to. That, if people have migraine and they're used to taking care of themselves and used to looking out for certain things, they might not have that same control. And then that can make their body even tighter and make them worry more.
Right.
which then could make it more likely that they would even get a migraine. And like there are lots of things that are foreign that we wouldn't normally do, or that we're not sure of if, as far as food ingredients, or even where we're going to be sleeping, and you know, if how the pillow is and how the bed is and all that, that can make a difference in how your neck is when you wake up in the morning. So, you know, they're all things to look at. So it's good to be able to plan a little bit going in so that you're not surprised. And for most people, they have kind of an idea what things that help and hurt them are. So, you know, a lot of it's just being able to translate that into, if you're going away, you know, being on the road, or if you're having people in, you know, perhaps dealing with more activity and more stress than you're used to, or more ways that you're using your body and your mind that you're not always doing. It's like you're on for certain, you know, you want to make it go for everybody. So life is still life, right? But we just have to plan a little bit to make sure that we don't, that we're not down for the count with a migraine, and we can really enjoy the time, whether it's at home, you know, whether it's going out in our area or traveling. So one of the things is that just to notice your body, right? And be aware of, and not take for granted when your shoulders are starting to tighten up or your neck is starting to tighten up, for example. And then to do something about it. So you can think of so many things where you notice it and then you just like ignore it. You know, you should do something about it, but you ignore it. So here it might be, oh, I'm noticing my shoulders are getting really tight. Maybe it's just an uncomfortable situation, just the excitement. It's just the rushing around to go somewhere, be somewhere, do something, right? Prepare something. So, and have all the parts, right? I'm getting stressed out just thinking about it. So it's like, if you notice that, you can just put your hand, reach across to your chest, to your opposite shoulder, and squeeze the top of your shoulder and just breathe. But, you know, just take a breath so that it doesn't keep building the stress.
Mm-hmm.
And then even if you feel one side, do both. Just reach across. So I just did my left shoulder with my right hand. Now I'm doing my right shoulder with my left hand. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
just grabbing kind of the top hunk of shoulder and pulling it, you know, squeezing it, kind of squeezing my heel of my hand and my fingers together and pulling up toward the ceiling, and just kind of squeeze and hold and release. Squeeze, hold, and release up and down the shoulder. So you can just do that anytime. If you're a passenger in a car, if you're relaxing wherever you are, if you're seated on a plane. So it's just something that's very easy. And then I always shake it out. So I'm getting a little detailed here, not going down a list, but I'm just giving you one thing that you can do to really avert the buildup. You can do it anytime, anywhere. And when I say shake it out, I'm just shaking my hands, kind of like shaking off the what I collected is what I call it.
Mm-hmm. I know one thing that we discussed is staying hydrated and watching your diet is, you know, is difficult when you're traveling or when you're staying in a strange place. Do you want to address that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, staying hydrated, drinking, you know, having your water bottle with you, refilling it once, if you're going to the airport, refilling it once you get through security, whatever you have to do to just have water with you so you can just take sips along the way. And it's really important. I mean, it's easy to become dehydrated when you're traveling. So just to have that and have water that with you all times if you can. Same with foods. It can be tricky because you want to have some protein, you know, there's a lot of stress happening, but there are foods that might not be familiar. We might not be eating usually. If it's food when we're on the road, or if it's food, at somebody's table or at a restaurant or hotel, wherever we're staying. We don't always know what the ingredients are, but most people with migraine, they learn and they know to ask, but you want to do it in a kind way, not in a fearful way, but just to be curious about, can you tell me what ingredients are in this? Or if you know your trigger, say it's soy sauce. Okay. Or say it's alcohol, is there wine in this? Knowing what to ask and then making other choices or seeing if they can, make exceptions, or I forget, for substitutions, is the word. And then there's so many hidden ingredients. There might be something that you're used to having. Say for you, there are sweets there, and say there's chocolate and you're fine with having chocolate. This happened to me once at a Halloween party, and I'm very careful of my triggers. So usually chocolate's okay for me if I don't eat a lot, but and sometimes you have a whopper migraine and you just remember it forever. So I went to this particular Valentine's Day party and had a chocolate or two, and I had such a bad migraine the next day. I couldn't go into work. And it was because I realized that there were also, in addition to the chocolate, there were, I'm sure, food coloring, there were additives, like for the filling of the chocolate. So just things that you might not know because you can't read the label. And it seems like it could be harmless because you have that type of food and it's fine, but you just never know. So you just have to be super careful. And a lot of times it's also combinations of factors and remembering to eat. So, sometimes we might be preparing for a really fun evening. So we might say, well, I'm not going to have lunch, or I'm going to not have a snack because I don't want to be too full when I go. But it's always good, especially for people with migraine, to make sure that you have consistent food, especially protein. So every couple hours, 2, 3, 4 hours, you don't want to go skipping meals just because you have a big event. Just it doesn't have to be a lot, just a little something, and preferably something like not a protein bar that's sweet based, but more something that's savory, that has protein, even cheese, if you or whatever substitute that might be, or if you're vegan, something with some protein. Hummus is always a good choice. So just to have a snack or something so that you're not, so that your blood sugar isn't rising and dipping throughout the day. You want to try and keep it constant. So that's one thing. So it's not only what you eat, but it's when, right? And also beverages can be problematic. Like you have to know if you are okay with having alcohol and what kinds. Some people do better with than others. I'm talking about adults, of course. But some people do better with clear liquids. They might do better with vodka or tequila, and not with things that have alcohol, with beverages that have what are called congeners, that are various chemical and food coloring byproducts of the process. So anyway, and then like sometimes the same thing with having protein and food throughout the day, so that you're not just having a cocktail, not having had much food at all during the day, and having a cocktail with hors d'oeuvres before dinner, for example, because that also can give you migraine. You want to have good solid protein, but if you can't have alcohol at all, there are so many great substitutes now, just even juice and soda water. A non-sweet beverage that is, a mocktail. So with, say, tomato juice or other kinds of juices that and ice, and so that they're good and they're fun. I don't do really well with alcohol, so I have to be really, really careful. As sometimes I never know, like it could have an inch of beer and I'll get a really bad
Yeah.
So it's know your triggers and, don't push it, find substitutes, make yourself feel deprived, make an enjoyable drink that you can have. That's really great that you enjoy and that doesn't have alcohol, or make sure that you do have alcohol, having had food and especially protein all day. Same with sweets. Don't have standalone sweets. Have them say as a dessert or at the end of protein, or with protein. So don't just have a cookie, for example, have cookie and milk, some kind of milk or drink or something that has protein in it.
One thing we talked about that we mentioned as we were discussing this is some travel tips. You talked about maintaining good posture while traveling, smart packing and carrying, staying warm and comfortable, and incorporating movement. Yeah.
Posture is really traveling. So whether you're in a car with somebody, whether you're seated next to somebody, anywhere, it could be at an airport, at a station, on a plane, in a car, at a dinner table. When you're seated next to someone, a lot of us have the tendency to just turn our neck to have that conversation. So for people with both attention type headache and migraine, that will put stress and contraction on your neck and shoulders and your lower skull. So the best way to handle that is to turn your body. So you want to, what my one of my dear massage teachers used to say was to pretend that you have a flashlight in your belly button and to turn your flashlight facing wherever your hands are facing. So basically turn your body to the activity. So my hands aren't necessarily facing somebody, but when I'm talking to them next to them, but they could be if I'm expressive with my hands, but you get the idea. It's like, don't just turn your head, just turn your body, even if it's 45 degrees. You don't have to directly face, but so that you're not twisting your neck and which then contracts both your neck and your shoulders. So there's that. And that applies to just about any situation. You could be at a movie, right? Getting ready for the show to start, or the production of something, performance, anything, like where you're sitting next to somebody somebody you don't know, and you just turn your body a little bit so that you're not straining. Sometimes I'll start out and I'm just, because you don't know them maybe, and you're just turning your head. And then after we're talking for a while, I'll even say, I'm just gonna turn my body so that I'm not twisting my neck, take care of yourself. And know what he's doing. So same thing with how we sleep. Some people even take pillows with them when they travel. Say if it's car travel, they might take, some people take pillows with them when they go on the plane. They're serious about it. I think do whatever works for you. I don't think you have to carry extra stuff necessarily, but just know what your setup is and what works for you, so that wherever you're going, you can kind of try and mock that up. Yeah. So if you need a little higher or lower, you basically want your head in a neutral position. You don't want your the pillow too high or too low, because either way, it puts a contraction on the opposite side of your neck and shoulder. So that is important to look at. And that also, the pillow bed ratio, that can change. So if the bed is harder or softer, say than you used to, or than it works for you, that can also change the relationship of your neck and the pillow. So
you talked about smart packing and carrying things too, which again, stress on your neck and shoulder. You talked about caution against carrying heavy totes. Like I use a backpack because it balances out. Even the bag that I have, is a small backpack, because otherwise you go one side to the other.
Yes, that is an excellent way to handle it. Distribute the weight. When you can, I advise wheels. So say you're going through the airport and you think, oh, this is just a tote, it's not that heavy, right? But it ends up actually being heavier than you think if you're walking through an airport, or if you even have connecting flights and then you're walking, even if you're have luggage in checked luggage, but if you have a heavy tote, or some people will bring a carry-on and then it'll be really heavy for them to put up in, in the overhead bins. And, you can ask for help. A lot of times I do because I'm short, but I advise really trying to check your luggage if you can. And if you can't, to really try to not carry stuff on your shoulders, aside from just your handbag, if you need to.
Yeah, another thing you mentioned is incorporating movement during traveling, while you're traveling.
Yeah, and I just want to say why that's important, because as far as the carrying, I'm going to go back to that for a minute,
Oh,
because
okay, sure.
if you carry something that's too heavy, or that just maybe doesn't seem that heavy, but you're carrying it for a long time, it puts strain and stress on the same areas, neck, head, shoulders, that are more likely to contribute to a migraine or tension type headache episode, or a flare up or an attack. And so because if something's heavy, in order for you to hold it on your shoulder, it's putting that much weight. Gravity is pulling your shoulder down and you're having to keep your shoulder up. And it's just making you tighten and contract your muscles, your fascia as well, the tissue that surrounds your muscles. So it's the whole areas of neck and shoulders and lower skull that are being tightened. And then a lot of times you're doing it under stress and pressure, because say if you're trying to be on time somewhere, and then you're also toting heavy stuff, so that it's a double tightening that happens, and that can make you more susceptible to headache or migraine. It's not the whole thing. It's not that it's the only cause of a migraine, but it can definitely be a contributing factor along with everything else that we've talked about. And yeah, overpacking. I think I had a recent trip. I haven't traveled for a while, and it's like one of the first times I didn't overpack. I felt a lot of freedom. I actually could have packed a little bit more. But it took me a while of planning. People who travel more often, it probably is no big deal to them, but it took me a while to plan. I planned out my outfits. I did things that I don't usually do so that I wouldn't take too much, because I was just kind of sick of having too much. But then again, I was going to be gone for 5 days, and I knew I was going to be doing at least 3 things a day. And I needed separate 3 or 4 things a day, so needed ways to account for all that. But it was helpful to just not take too much, but at the same time, so planning on all of this helps, I think. So yes, that was the question that you'd asked before. So some families are like, they'll, especially during the holidays, they'll go out, depending on the weather, but go out and play some sports outside, take walks. Sometimes you kind of got to force yourself, but a lot of times it's really nice to do if people are together, or even if you're by yourself, just after a meal, or just get out there and see if you can move around. I got to go to the gym with my daughter when I was traveling, went to her gym. That was fun. And we also did a walk in a park. Of course, it was California, so it was, temperate. Weather is fine, but it's fun to walk in the snow too. So just, take precautions. Oh, which also brings me to, especially for people with migraine, but also tension type headache, to always protect yourself from the cold. So we're in winter, of course. And so scarf, hat, gloves, warm boots, warm coat. Like, don't be a hero and brave the cold. When I moved to New York, I saw so many hardy young guys walking around in Bermuda shorts in sub freezing weather. They can do it. It's like, they have the build and the stamina for it, but at the same time, if you're a migraine person, what that causes you to do is tighten your body and kind of contract so that you don't feel the cold. So
Mm-hmm.
bundle up and keep all your musculature, your whole body warm. It's a lot better strategy because then you don't get tight. So I advise that. And then you can be chilly inside too. Some people, it's chilly inside their place or their drafts, or when it gets really, really freezing, if so, bundle up, do what it takes to just keep yourself cozy wherever you are so that you're not tightening in order to stay warm.
Yeah, it seems like you really need to know your triggers and try and soften up as many of them as you can because it's being you're traveling and different situations, just paying attention and doing small things, if it makes it easier and can help eliminate. What happens if you feel like something's coming on? Like you said, you talked about neck. Should you try and rest, or just try and keep an eye on it to say, whoa, I thought it was going to be great seeing the whole family, but maybe I should do it in small doses or something, I guess pay attention to some of that. What do you think?
Oh, well, it's all good. Everything you said is important. And first of all, small things, I always say we have to eat anyway, right? So what you eat, or we have to sit anyway, whatever it is that we're doing, we have to do anyway. So if we do it with awareness of how it affects our own bodies. And
Mm-hmm.
also, one thing I forgot to mention is sitting, besides turning sideways, is like if you lean back, whether it's at your desk or on a couch just to watch stuff, a lot of times you have to pull your head forward. And so then that also makes your shoulders tight. So just being aware,
Mm-hmm.
sitting vertically, no matter what you're doing, that can still be relaxed once you get used to it. You just let your weight drop down through your body and your hips and into
Mm-hmm.
your feet, gives you more support. So that can also help with keeping your shoulders from being tight, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's one way that if you start to feel like something is coming on. Now, people who have migraine, it's different for everybody, in answer to your question, because if people have migraine and they're used to taking medication, then they need to bring their rescue medication with them. I'm sure they know that. And also take all the other precautions, like I was saying, to try and prevent. But then things do happen where you feel like one's coming on. So then they should take their rescue medication. Now, if it were me and I were working with them, then I would have taught them the Mundo method or transcranial somatic touch therapy, where it's the method that I developed in that I was talking about in 1970, where you can put your hands on the head and stop
Mm-hmm.
migraine in progress. And so,
Mm-hmm.
or one that's impending that you feel like you can back it down. So that actually, I've been using that on myself for all this time as well. If I get one from an unknown reason, so like from a surprise, because usually I know what my triggers are, but there are always surprises. Or if you're not feeling well. Also, sleep. We did not mention that. That's really important, and sleep can be disrupted. And sleep has been shown to be really, really important in people with migraine. So it's important to get whatever you can of sleep, at least, they say 8 hours, but at least 6. And sometimes it's disruptive, but just know that that's important. Also to read labels. There's so many things, but if you so I skipped around a little bit, but in answer to your question, as far as, you need your rescue medication. For some people, it might help to have just if it's not an over-the-counter medication. And also if you feel something coming on, like I was saying, just to squeeze your shoulders, to take some breaths, slow in your body, maybe go out for a walk. Maybe you haven't eaten, maybe you haven't been having water. So just to note that. Also, people, if they're used to having a lot of caffeine, or at least their daily caffeine, if you're traveling, you shouldn't skip it. You should have it, so that, because that might be also make a difference for you. So there are a number of things that you can do, but for everybody, it's a little bit different, as far as relief, and you want to do all you can to prevent. And then some of the things that I already said for relief.
So you've got a website. Here is the Headache Coach, and you do online sessions as well as in-person sessions, right?
Yes.
And you're based in California, so you can do live in person, and I know you do different events and coaching events out there, as well as you do group and individual online sessions to help people identify what their issues are and then help them start to deal with them, correct?
Yeah. I work with people in a number of ways, and usually do a series of sessions. And for each person, it's a little different. So we assess that, but sometimes as it unfolds is the best way. Like with therapy, you don't always know how long it's going to take, but compared to how long people have had the migraines and headaches, which is usually years and decades, it's usually just a number of sessions, usually from 6 to 10 to maybe 16, 20, which, considering how many years they've had them, is a pretty short learning curve. And I find that as time goes on, I'm working with people. It used to be for a very short amount of time, then it got to be longer, and now it's shorter. But it just depends what other things. A lot of times people have other conditions or other situations that are dealing with, like trauma. But I've been working with people online. When I moved to New York, I started getting people from California and the West Coast. So I started working, and from other places in the United States, and then from Europe. So I first started working even by phone, when I didn't even see people. And then I started working by Skype, and then FaceTime, and now Zoom. And now I have a platform that I work with for my whole practice management, that people can book their own appointments and pay and all that online. And we have video online too. And it's really surprising and really interesting and really great that people can learn the therapies remotely. Like I can teach them, and I can see how their body is, and I can help them adjust both their posture and, say, even with the hands-on work, how they're holding their body, how they're holding their hands, and where and how they're using their touch. And it's very effective, and they learn how to take care of themselves, and they're out the door and living a wonderful, vibrant life, one that they may not have lived for years because they've been so burdened by migraine.
Honestly, I think just the tip of turning while you're talking to someone, because if you things can just build up, especially while you're traveling. You have a little of this, a little of, and it just sort of can add up. Oh, any way you can try and keep things control has got to be useful.
Yeah, it's so true.
To be helpful, so
Yeah,
I
it's so
think
true.
it's an interesting tip for anyone, to not
Absolutely. How I talk about it is to make a loop.
twist your neck, even if you don't get migraines, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So
What?
how I talk about it is making a loop. you make a loop between your body and what you're doing. And then when you notice that you're doing something, say, like I'm doing right now, I'm kind of hunched over and leaning forward, and I can feel the back of my neck kind of scrunching up and my shoulders. So then I'm going to sit back. So I notice it, and then I'm going to sit back and still talk to you now from that position. So that's what I mean. I'm noticing what my body's doing. I'm noticing who's out there, who I'm interacting with, or what I'm interacting with. And then I'm shifting my body so that I'm not so sitting either askew or forward or tightening whatever is out of alignment. Just putting myself back in alignment, feeling my feet on the floor, and then noticing you again. So it's making a loop between my body and what I'm doing, and then shifting it. And then as you're doing it, you'll notice yourself back in the same position or another one. So that's why I say it's making a loop, because it's a constant noticing of where you are in space and time.
Yeah, but it's training yourself. And once you start to train yourself, then you'll notice it. Like I'll notice the same thing. My neck will go forward. So I'll try and put my shoulders back and straighten up. So, and then you kind of relax a little bit, but then all of a sudden I'll go, whoa, wait a minute. I can tell if I stay in that. I don't get headaches per se, but you just know my neck will then hurt or something, or you just start to train yourself. So,
yeah, exactly. It's a practice, and it's developing, it's giving yourself a new habit that is helpful for your body, basically for people's pain, versus something that compounds it or that build it or create it. And so I think I would say the hardest part, at least for me even, is to actually take action once you notice. Like what you were saying is you notice it, and then you come back, and you notice it, and then you come back. And we can't actually say, okay, well, I'm not going to move, I'm going to stay in this position because this is the perfect position, right? We have to move. We can't freeze ourselves there, because then we'll be tight in that position. So it's like we're always moving and changing based on our circumstance and who we're interacting with, what we're thinking, what we're doing. And so then to just be aware of that as a practice. And then, but what I was starting to say, for me, one of the things is I might notice it. Like I'll go, oh, I'm leaning into the screen. I really know I shouldn't do that. But leaning into the screen, I mean, in that moment. So it's like a conscious choice to go, okay, sit back, feel your back, feel your seat in the chair, feel your feet on the floor. Like I have to make myself do it, because sometimes I just be so intent on doing whatever I'm doing. My whatever it is, my old habits will override what I know I should be doing. So it's taking action on what I've noticed. That is where the key is.
I think a point that you made, especially when you're traveling, is you'll tend to walk into a room and you'll just kind of sit down on a couch or a chair, and it might be really soft, and then you're sitting there and you're talking, instead of but noticing or know that maybe it's better to sit in a chair that's got a little more form to it, so you're sitting up more rather than just kind of slouching, because it's not your chair. Your chair at home, you can sit up straight, and it's got good support. I think that's one thing that traveling and visiting different places is a challenge, especially if you're maybe feeling something's coming on that you want to like not have something come on. So because I have to be careful because some couches, some chairs you sit down on and I have trouble getting up. You know what I mean? They're
Yeah.
like, they're low and they're, just difficult to get out of, so
Yes, we
anyway,
have
well,
aging people's problems.
yeah. Um,
But it's
well,
true. I mean, even like
and
years
that's what,
ago, when I was gonna, I had an opportunity to buy a couch, which is my first real couch that I was gonna buy, and it was during the age of shabby chic, and all those couches were very, they were down based, most of them, and so they were very, just like you said, you'd sit in it. They were very fluffy, but both the back and the cushion, the seat cushions were basically like a down pillow. So you'd sit in it and you just completely sink.
Mhm.
And so what happens when you do that is then your seat falls lower than your knees. And like you said, it's hard to get up, but it also makes you kind of fold over in the middle, and then your shoulders curve forward. So it gives you what I call a C curve. Like if you saw your
Mhm.
body from the side, your
Mhm.
head goes forward, and then your abdomen kind of your scrunches, and your
Mhm.
shoulders go forward, and your knees and legs kind of rise up. So of course, in addition to it being hard to get up, it's hard to breathe, really get a full breath when your
Mhm.
middle and the front of your body is accordioned in. So
Yeah.
that's one thing, and then the head being forward like that then puts extra weight on the shoulder. So yeah, it's with things that we just take for granted. So sometimes in order to combat that, like you said, you sit in a different chair, or like a more firm chair, or you can also scoot up to just sit on the edge of something. It's like a short people's problem. Like I have,
Right.
to the edge, because otherwise I'm just like cartoon with the little kid sitting in a giant chair. So anything else that we wanted to, oh, I'm having a sale.
Okay.
I forgot to say, because you talked about my website, and I am offering 25% off through 31st of December 2024. And it's
And we'll have a link to that and a link to your website and a quick reference guide just to go over some of the points that we talked about.
That's great.
So, well, yeah, well, thank you so much. Yeah, it's stressful. It can be stressful just knowing you're going to travel and you never know if you're going to have a headache. So, all the different pre-travel packing tips, anything you can do can help at least feel like you've done as much as you can. And oh, can
Yes,
you
I
hear
was just
me?
gonna say to go into it. Yes. Some things we didn't talk about, like I'm realizing about the normal, stressors that we can worry about, as far as all the practical things we talked about, but then also in encounters with people. So we don't know how that's going to go, all along the way of travel, with people we know, people we don't know, with family. And I would just say to set your clock, your emotional clock, your outlook. Even if you've had a bad experience before or worried about it, to try and just do a reset for this trip, say, or for this experience, or for this party, whatever it is. And just tell yourself that you're going to have a positive experience, and that whatever it is, you're just going to enjoy whatever it is, and try and find the light in something where you think, oh, it could go all wrong, or it's gone all wrong in the past, or I'm feeling trepidatious about doing one thing or the other, and just try and go in with fresh eyes and give yourself that and see what happens.
Yeah, that's good advice no matter if you get headaches or not headaches, so especially stressful past few years, and you're seeing everyone's seeing people they haven't seen. So just try and positive as much as you can, and try and enjoy yourself. So
Yeah, absolutely.
anyway,
And be,
okay, well, thank you so much.
well, just being thankful for the things that do work, right? Like it might not have been everything we wanted or that we were expecting, but then there might be unexpected things that we can really appreciate and to just enjoy those, whatever those are.
Well, I wish you a happy new year,
Same to
and
you, Mildred.
we'll put some of the links up in our quick reference guide, and okay, well, happy new year, and
And
we'll
that would be
talk
great.
soon.
Yes, Happy New Year to you and to all your listeners.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Jan, for joining us today and sharing your insights on preventing headaches and stress during the holidays. Your tips will help our listeners enjoy a calmer, more joyful season. For more information about Jan Mundo, visit the links in our show notes. You'll find a link to her website, details about her coaching options, and how to get a copy of her book. We're so pleased to have had you with us today, Jan, and we look forward to hearing from our audience about how these strategies are making their holidays brighter. Thanks again for tuning in, everyone, and we'll see you next time.